Hello, we're so excited to be here again. The program is the Dailies, where we look at some of the happenings on the paper. Quite a lot of things have been happening from the beginning of the year to this very moment, where we're seeing even the northern bloc are talking about what they need to do to see that 2027 they are able to secure their slot. And then we're seeing that Benway regarding the killings that happened during the Christmas, a very sad one where people were rejoicing, and then we had some people out there, destroying and killing people. So it's really a sad one. Quite a number of issues are happening in the paper. So please do well to join us by dropping your comment, your views on Facebook, as they are always welcome. I am Sela Elisha Dashom, and I will be doing this together with Rachel Tenzi. Good morning.
Good morning, Sela.
So excited and happy.
Yeah, I'd say also, Sela, it's a new year, and of course, it comes with a lot of excitement and expectation naturally until we see how the year goes. But so far, so good. It's the beginning. We are excited, and Happy New Year to you.
Same to you, Rachel, and a Happy New Year to everybody out there as well. Well, we have quite a number of papers we'd love to go through, starting with the New Telegraph newspaper.
The first story on the paper, non-oil exports earnings up 25.3% to $6.03 billion, a report from the Central Bank of Nigeria. Nigerian firms' orders raised $550 million to emerge tops in 2024. This is for startups. You can find details on page 17. Farotimi Emefiele Obiano, Sirika, others case that will shape 2025. We are set for January 10 election, Ohaneze Electoral Committee is saying. 2024 economic performance unsatisfactory for private sector. A report and statement coming from Nasima. You can find details on page 25. Ribadu Adeboye and Nenche listed among 100 most reputable Africans. The big story on the paper, Northern Bloc plans to register with INEC ahead of 2027. The writer says heads go on council to seek South support for cohesion and inclusivity. And we have says existing parties fail to address Nigeria's fundamental challenges. You can find details of the big story on page 4. Christmas Day killings, Benway to give victims mass burial. Saudi releases 3 Nigerian women after 10 months in jail over drugs. Nigeria's gospel artist to minister at Trump's inaugural prayer breakfast. You can find details on page 26. On insecurity, we may engage local arms manufacturers. A statement from CDF. The writer says NAF recorded success in operations against banditry and terrorism, and bandits killed Katsina Meiti Allah chair, abduct wives and daughter. Army decorates first female infantry corps warrant officer. You can find details of this story on page 7, 8, 26, and 28. PDP will produce more governors. Take Aso Rock in 2027, coming from the NWC of PDP. And Diri urges colleagues to strengthen party and save Nigeria. We have a study that says new advisory links alcohol with cancer risks. You can find details on page 27, 26, and we need to know that alcohol is one substance that affects every organ of the body. And that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
Moving on to the Leadership newspaper, where we have the big story starting with Cybercrime Act, where we see judges need training in technology to check abuses. This is coming from stakeholders. The writer following that, NJC, lawyers disagree on training modular. And then we're seeing that there is always budget for training coming from the council. You can do well to read more detail of this story on page 4. And we have where we have I did not defect to PDP or any other party, coming from the former governor of Kaduna State, El-Rufai. You can read that on page 6. Bandit kill Meati Allah chairman in Katsina State. CBN facilitate reform of 7.05 billion naira, 569.03 dollars to bank customers. You can read more detail of that on page 7. 4 dead, many injured in Delta tanker explosion. Data found on page 21. And we have lament economic hardship in private sector. We saw that on the previous paper. Terrorists scare farmers from harvest in Niger State. More detail found on page 21. INEC denies plan to destroy 6 million uncollected PVCs. For those who actually heard that rumor, here we've seen INEC coming out to deny such. So if you're yet to get your PVC, regardless of whether it's election or not, election period, please do well to go there and then get your PVC. You might need it. We have the picture story where we can see the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu together with the Enugu State Governor during the President's state visit and commissioning of multiple projects executed by the Governor, and this happened during the weekend. And that's all on the Leadership newspaper.
On this day newspaper, in Enugu, Tinubu says Nigeria must encourage more private sector players into politics with Mba's performance. PDP, with cry of hunger, poverty, we can produce president and more governors in 2027. Diri urges colleagues to strengthen party, serve Nigeria. Mohammed reiterates commitment to party's vision, contributes to national development. Several APC members join party in Bauchi. You can start with this story on the front page. The big story on this day is untrue tax committee didn't consult. Governors refused to meet with us. This is a statement from Daily. Says NGF cancelled scheduled meeting 4 times. Discloses committee met with over 120 llamas and League of Northern Democrats. Insists panel still willing to meet with all stakeholders. Intimates those opposed to bills may have ulterior motives. You can start with the details on the front page, and still the picture story with the caption partnership that works, where we can see President Bola Ahmed Tinubu with the governor of Enugu during a state visit. And that's all the news on this day newspaper.
Right, let's take a look at the Vanguard newspaper, where we have single-use plastic enforcement on ban starts in 14 days, coming from the Lagos State government. Address food insecurity, economic hardship now, Southern monarchs tell federal government. 4 deaths scores injured, 2 banks runs as petrol tanker explodes at Igbo. Detail found on page 5. Fubara can transact business with 3 lawmakers, court rules. More detail in the paper. The big story on the paper is regarding organized private sector chart economic growth path that is regarding the 2025 business year, where we're seeing Amasi, MAN, LCCI make recommendations as business brace for more challenges amid hope for brighter year ahead. And we have Nasima seek urgent reforms to address private sector challenges. Says 2024 performance unsatisfactory, and then we have major changes needed to stimulate growth, coming from the Manufacturer Association of Nigeria. And then another here saying 2024 most challenging year for medium small enterprises, coming from Asborn. And then we have private public sectors collaboration imperative, coming from LCCI. Federal government pledges impactful 2025. So I believe that all businesses' fingers are crossed regarding what the year 2025 will look like for the business owners. Vet doctors raise concern over dog attacks and deaths. More detail found on page 9. And I think I'll use this opportunity for those who are yet to get their animals to be vaccinated regarding rabies. We know this is a period where they mostly get affected by this virus. Please do well to make sure you vaccinate your, talking about whether your dog, your cat, or regardless any of these domestic animals in your homes. More detail regarding the concern raised by vet doctors can be found on page 9. PDP will produce more governors in 2027, coming from the National Working Committee of the PDP. And then we have Mba doing everything possible to provide security, attract investors to Enugu, coming from the President Tinubu. Regarding drug shipment, NDLEA NAP wanted Kimpi, Nollywood filmmaker. You want to know who that person is? Do well to read that story on page 6. We haven't reached 90% completion, coming from BUA refinery. No plans to destroy 6 million PVC, says INEC. And then regarding sports, where we're seeing CAF CC, where we have Adeyi actually lead Black Bulls Road. So for those who are involved or those who are interested in the football, do well to read that. We have a picture story showing Sanwo-Olu holding annual Thanksgiving. do well to get the paper in more detail, and that's all on the Vanguard newspaper.
On Blueprint newspaper, the first story, FCT police rescue abandoned day-old baby, arrest mother. Railway projects get 41.49 billion naira in 2025 budget coming from the federal government. On Sports Confederation Cup, Dailies calls for Aimba to win first game. The big story on the paper, Kwankwaso to Northern Elders, your choice of presidential candidate undermining democracy. The writer says NEF urges further dialogue on tax reform bills, wants extensive engagement with critical stakeholders. Saudi Arabia releases 3 Nigerians persecuted for drug offense. You can start with the details on the front page. 5 persons die in Delta tanker explosion. Banks, houses burnt. We have other stories. You can find details on the front page, and that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper, where we're seeing fresh agitation through states' poor execution of the new minimum wage. We're seeing that's a carryover from last year till this year. The battle back and forth regarding the new minimum wage is still talks in the first quarter of the year. We hope that governors will actually, and also private institutions, will look into doing that to actually implement this new minimum wage for that people can enjoy the 2025. As well, we're seeing Peter Obi decries intimidation, insists on fighting for better Nigeria. That is the 2023 presidential candidate of the Labour Party. INEC denies plan to destroy 6 million unclaimed PVC. We've seen that on the papers we've read so far. Terrorists kill Mighty Allah chairman, 3 others in Christina. Insurgents insecurity to end in 2025, CDS tells personnel. Disco pays 137 billion naira to TCN amid persistent Greek collapses. And then we have the last story on the paper, 4th year dead, property destroyed as petrol tanker explodes in Delta. That's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, remittances from abroad shore up Naira and boost exchange rate. How dirty December defied Nigeria's economic crisis. Billions spent on parties, cars, hotels, concerts, fireworks, and films. You can find details on page 24. However, we also need to know that people start planning for Christmas from January. So we will not say that we don't have people who just have a lot of money. At the same time, some of these parties were planned since January. Some of these purchases of things that were needed started for some people since the middle of the year, 3 months before Christmas and all of that, because it is one holiday that people do take seriously, not only in Nigeria but across the world. So you could really think that there's no global meltdown economically if you would rate the economy based on Christmas celebration. It's not alone. You won't get it because people do take planning for Christmas seriously. At the same time, we know how Nigeria is. When we say there's no money, people are building mansions and houses left, right, center. It doesn't matter. We need to understand the market factor. There are times, even in our exchange system and all of that, when people are seeing loss, we have companies that are seeing gains and all of that. So the same when it comes to life and our finances, even at individuals. You might be at rock bottom and I might be having my greatest financial year ever. Of course, yes. You can find details on page 24. Still on Nigerian Tribune, the big story. LND seeks South backing to form national party. Says new platform will be for Nigerians dissatisfied with APC or PDP. Fintech payment platforms hold sway as bank customers lament poor services, that is during the Yuletide. Importers seek quarterly exchange rate regime, duty waivers to revive trade. Onion farmers link price hike scarcity to flood and climate change. Ribadu Adeboye and Nenche listed among 100 most reputable Africans. Outcry over persistent power outage in Epe. Residents to embark on 30-day protest. You can find details on page 4 in that all news on Nigerian Tribune.
All right, let's take a look at the Voice of Liberty, where Tinubu to attend inauguration of Ghana's president-elect. We will record he had the election last year, and then you can do well to read more detail of that story in the paper. Bandits attack Kaduna governor's aid convoy, injured the driver and police officer. NEF enhanced fleet with new fighter jet plans future acquisitions. You can read detail in the paper. Marketers demand sale of two refineries as NNPCL slashes price again. Begin fuel loading from Warri Refinery. The Petrol Products Retail Outlets Owners Association of Nigeria has asked the federal government to privatize government-run refineries in order to enhance operations in the downstream sector. So we'll keep our fingers crossed to see what will be the reply coming from the government regarding this request. RFI denies defection to PDP. And then as well, we're seeing SIRAP urges NNPCL to account for the missing 825 billion naira, $2.5 billion from refinery repairs. So you can do well to read more detail in the paper. Still coming from Kaduna State, Governor Sani urges military to remain vigilant, launch operations. Tinubu vowed to complete Eastern Rail Line linking Port Harcourt to Maiduguri. You can read more detail of that in the paper, and that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
On the Matrix newspaper, EARAN to NNPCL cotton supply to Dangote refinery will undermine domestic demand. On the English Premier League, Amorim frustrated with Man United inconsistency after Liverpool 2-2 draw. Black Sunday tanker explosion rocks Delta State, several residents killed, properties worth millions razed. Obori worry moms, others essential support for victims. 3 Nigerian women jailed for drug trafficking in Saudi Arabia regain freedom. The big story is ahead of 2027 PDPI's presidency. The writer says one's failure to reclaim leadership could end democracy in Nigeria. Nothing stops PDP producing president in 2027. Hunger, poverty is too much. Ex-chairman dumps party for APC in Abia. Tinubu to attend inauguration of John Mahama, Ghana's president-elect. INEC debunks rumors of plans to destroy 6 million PVCs. Tinubu's Enugu visit, a game changer, says Okupe. You can find details on page 9. We have Nathaniel Bassey to minister at Donald Trump's inaugural prayer breakfast. You can find details on page 23, and we can say that's also a win for Nigeria. It's still one of us representing us in the White House. And the big story, and we have a picture story here that says royal visit. President Bola Tinubu from the left, and Awujale and paramount ruler of Ijebu land, and Ayeluwa Oba, Dr. Sikiru Koyode Adetona Ogbatewole II, when the first-class monarch visited Tinubu at his Ikoyi, Lagos residence. This happened yesterday, and that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
I know we've been saying this a number of times, Richard, regarding casualties we do record during either explosion, most times explosion, or accidents that we record on some of our highways. And I clearly remember, I think, not even from last year, I think this has been one of the things we've been saying, the fact that states need to look into how they're going to plan out the ways that certain tankers use the road. And I keep making an example. I remember the one we once had here in Jos, and then we saw that the casualties that were recorded would have been more if that explosion took place in the daytime where activities were happening. And I can actually link that to what happened in Delta State. I just do not want to imagine the properties that were being destroyed. And then the 4 people, even though I believe that subsequently we might hear that there were more than just 4 people. But then what am I trying to say in a nutshell is the fact that I am hoping that we will take deliberate steps this year, because it's really a sad one that we're starting on this note, having various tanker explosions. We know of places such as Lagos where we keep having accidents. Like it seems like every day or every week we're having an accident happening in either the Lagos Abeokuta Expressway. So I am looking forward to seeing deliberate steps, deliberate attempts coming from various state governors coming together. So you know what, for these tankers, we know that if you need to actually go from one state to another, why don't you do it at particular time? We know states have started doing doing certain days, okay, from 9 p.m. or from 10 p.m. to either 5 a.m., because we know that most time people start using the road by maybe 6 a.m. pending. That's for here. I know for other states you have to go out early because
Yes.
of the traffic and all of that. So I'm hoping that there is just a way that you can look into when activities is less
True.
for these tankers to use the road, so that we can see how, because I got to the point that each time you see an explosion or an accident, you want to know how many people were there.
Yes.
And that is to show that psychologically we're beginning to get affected by things like this. I was okay, it's just for people,
Yeah,
thank
it's
God.
true.
And it's really bad,
It's
because
bad.
even in life matters. So I'm looking forward to see the steps that everybody will put their hands together to see that we do something to reduce the number of casualties we do record during these explosions we do have.
So just as you said, it all boils down to what a state government is willing to do for the road safety in their state. What are the things, what are the policies, what are the rules and the laws that you're putting out there for these tankers drivers, precisely because it's already a dangerous vehicle because it's loaded with fuel and all of that, and you must make sure that it is your responsibility to keep your indigents or the citizens of that state safe, regardless of whatever it might be for this tankers driver, the target they need to reach, where they need to go, and all of that. You rightly said we have states that have said, you know what, there is no certain movement at this time. The simple reason is that we still have these tankers being reckless at night. We still have tanker explosion happening at night and all of that. We saw one recently in one of those express roads, and we were surprised that it happened at night, but there were still
Number of
people. There
over
was
50 people who
exactly,
died.
and we would say, okay, what if it happens during the day? It means it would have been more than that number of people, and it is just to reduce the casualties or to make sure that there are no casualties whatsoever. There are many other things that we can put in place. The roads, you know, there's supposed to be specific roads that these tankers can ply and are not supposed to follow. It is also important. There are places that are not supposed to go through. They are not even supposed to pass overhead bridges. We see them passing and they are not supposed to, because whatever will happen, the
Impact.
impact will be bigger than if they were following a different route and all of that. There are many things that should be done. What is the speed limit for these tankers? Because sometimes they fall because there's no balance on certain road, maybe because of the speed that these drivers are driving and all of that. So I just hope this has, we can't even say what is the federal government doing about this. This is a state government issue and a problem. Are you regulating the movement of these tankers to be able to make sure that when they eventually fall out of their recklessness or a mistake that couldn't be avoided, there won't be any casualty? Because it's not about four lives. It's not even the person who would lose their legs. It's a problem because you've taken the livelihood out of that person. Someone who will get burned out of recognition, even when you leave, it means you can't even have a job to some extent because you can't function when you lose your arm. So we can say one casualty is big. Even half people who will not be able to live their normal life anymore, it is a big deal, and we just hope that we don't have such. So let the state government do something about
We
it.
look forward to seeing them taking proactive measures. Let's take a look at Daily Times newspaper, where we're seeing Kwankwaso bombs North accuses leaders of falsehood. This is regarding ahead of the 2027 general election, where we're seeing that the national leader of the Nigerian People's Party and the former governor of Kano State, Rubadu, Musa Kunkusu, has actually accused some of the northern leaders of spreading falsehoods. So you can read more detail of what they actually spread inside the paper. The big story in the paper: President Tinubu preaches unity in Southeast. Niger government to support Nigerian efforts. You can read that in the paper. Trump inauguration, where we see Nathaniel Bassi to minister at the inaugural breakfast prayer. Bauchi government inaugurates 500 road marshals, and then Sirap alleges missing 825 billion naira and then $2.5 billion in NNPCL. Downside, we have fight against insurgents, where we have the Chief of Defense Staff commend troops and call for improved efficiency. More data found in the paper, and that's all on Daily Times newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, LP can win 2027 poll without merger. Statement from the party. You can find details on page 7. The big story: new virus. Federal government tightens monitoring to quarantine China passengers. Experts demand proactive steps as new virus surges in China ravages children. You can find details on page 2. So if this is more on children, then I think schools need to also watch out and start putting all those measures that we did when Corona came or Ebola. But this time around, let's start doing it now. The nose masks, the washing of hands, and all of that. We don't have to wait till we hear that there is a case in the country. Let schools start putting in measures because we know how crowded and how these children always have close contact with one another. Still on the paper, APC dismisses PDP's threat to unseat Oyebanji in 2026. 5 feared dead, banks burned in Delta tanker explosion. Family solicits funds to bury Nigerian student in UK. 18 policemen present when hoodlums attacked me. A statement from Oshun Monarch: 18 policemen present when hoodlums attacked me. Yuletide holidays, Lagos, Kano, Delta, other schools resume today. You can find details on page 9, and that's all the news on the Punch newspaper.
All right, let's move on to the next paper, which is New Nigerian newspaper. Governor Ododo orders immediate crackdown on Kogi farmers' killers. You can read that story on page 3. Father beats daughter boyfriend to death in Delta. You wonder what actually happened. You can read that story on page 3. And you wonder sometimes certain fathers go to the extreme. Well, we really do not know, but we hope that the police will actually go into detail to find out what actually happened. Energy advocates warn against plans by NNPCL cabal to cripple Dangote local refineries in Nigeria. The right of law industry says hail Dangote refinery over recent lowering of fuel prices during the Yodeta season. Castina police dismantles notorious network, record reduced crime rates. Governor Yusuf commemorates birthday with visit to father's grave. You can read that on page 4. Delta tanker explosion claims lives. We see some of the papers say 4, others say 5. You can do out read more detail in the paper. Speaker Abbas sad over the demise of Bebeji Zanzo Alhaji Abdul. You can read that on page 4. Zulum subsidized petrol at 600 naira for farmers in communities affected by the insurgents. Distribute farm inputs of 5,000 returnees. You can do well to read that on page 6. As Governor Inwa Yahaya lights up airwaves with digital overhaul of Gombe Media Corporation, you can read that on page 12. NDLEA arrests wanted drug queen Nollywood filmmaker over huge illicit deals. You can read that in the paper. Regarding hardship, God in control of situation in Nigeria, Ibadan Anglican Bishop is saying that. You can do out to read that on page 3. And that's all on New Nigerian newspaper.
On Daily Independent, the big story: 2027 elections. Northern Democrats woo Southern politicians to form new party. The writer says APC, PDP, LP, NNPP, others have failed Nigeria. Lack of visionary leadership in APC, PDP resulted in poverty and insecurity. Aviation College to spend 3.6 billion naira on navigational equipment and lab in 2025. NAMA proposes 7 billion naira on VHF radio and safe tower upgrade. Ribadu Elumelu Adeboye make list of 100 most reputable Africans. BUA refinery in Akwa Ibom not 90% complete, management clarifies. Tinubu to attend inauguration of John Mahama as Ghana's president. INEC denies plan to destroy 6 million uncollected PVCs. You can find details on page 6. And I believe it will be very reckless for INEC to destroy 6 million uncollected PVCs. This is, there were funds, money. This is a waste of resource and all of that. So I do hope it stays as a rumor and definitely something that INEC would never think of doing it. Let people come and get their PVC since it doesn't expire. It's not a driver license, it's not an ATM card, it's not going to expire after 3 years or anything. There's no renewal whatsoever that needs to be done. So you let it there and the numbers will keep going down for as long as it takes till every Nigerian has a PVC. Still on the paper, we will unseat Tinubu, produce more governors in 2027, PDP boast, and that's all the news on Daily Independent.
Well, we hope PDP will put the work down and not just all about boasting through words, but then their actions should tell whether Nigerians want them back in power or not. Let's take a look at first newspaper, where we see Tinubu to attend Ghana's president-elect Mahama inauguration January 7, which happens to be tomorrow. Do well to read more detail of that. Army destroy 20 illegal refineries, arrest suspects, seeks 190,000 liters of oil. Saudi Arabia frees 3 Nigerian women after 10-month drug detention. And then as well, we have the big story, Southern monarchs to Tinubu's government, tackle food crisis, elevate hardship now. This is the request coming from the Southern monarchs. Serap demands NNPCL explain missing 825 billion naira, $2.5 billion refinery funds. Cubana chief priest, and then we have man Borna boy gives $30,000 easing to my brother. So you can read more detail of that. NSITF target informal economy in 2025 expansion plan, and the picture stories where we can see the president during the inauguration in Enugu State and also the partnership that he will be having. Do well to get a paper, read more detail of any other story that is of interest to you.
On Punch Sports Extra, Ide's calls as Aimba and 10-game winless run. Chan 2024 Eagles B begin prep in Ekene. Boniface suffers injury setback, and we have the Premier League Liverpool 2-2 draw. Spirited Devils snatch point at Anfield. We have Barnsley New Year run thrills Wakali. You can find details on page 6. Chelsea in talks with Torino over Casada, and then we have Partey bemoans Brighton penalty. Milan wants Olmo. Golf beats Swatek as US Open win United Cup. Sabalanka claims 18th career title in Brisbane. Nigeria dominate 2024 Middle Storm Cricket Awards. You can find details on page 2. Uwokolo wins UBO Boxer of the Year award. The big story is ideal target. Why Olaina is perfect Kai Walker replacement for City. You can find details on page 7, and that's all the news on Punch Sports Extra.
All right, let's see what national economy looks like, where we have Governor Adeleke and others get leadership awards. You can read them. Those who got their award on page 5. As well, still on national economy, we have the currency, the buying, setting, and inflation. This was at the open of the market on the 3rd, which happens to be last week. So we can do also look at what the US is buying, how it's being sold, and then as well as prices of commodities. We have agriculture, IT, renewable energy, and others to shape Nigeria in 2025. We saw that from last year, where we see what would these sectors do regarding how Nigeria would look like. So this determines where the attention of the government is, what is their priority for the year 2025. And as always, always for the agriculture, where I hope that the government will look into that, as well as IT, because we know there's so much of money there that the government is yet to tap. So we look forward to seeing what agriculture, IT, renewable energy, and others would look like for us in 2025. The last story on the paper is regarding economic goals that failed to deliver in 2024. Well, let's see what the government will do regarding some of these goals that they're unable to reach, if they will be able to actualize it in 2025. And that's all on the national economy, as well as how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel, for doing
You're
this.
welcome, Philip.
And as well, thank you to our viewers and every other person who made this program a success. So we come your way again tomorrow. To have a lovely day ahead.